if you are here, you can also go onto YouTube and watch the whole stream. So the stream is also on YouTube as well, so you can actually be able to go and watch it on YouTube as well. I'm streaming this whole entire thing also on YouTube, which makes it even much better, so you can watch it properly on YouTube. You can be able to see the screen properly. So if you do want to watch it, head down to the YouTube channel and go and stream it there. I'm just going to be also heading there so that I can be able to read the comments that side. The YouTube channel is iPod Official Trader, so it's the same name as this. Just search iPod Official Trader. You're gonna actually be able to see the whole screen properly. I'm just going to be explaining this whole entire thing at the moment. So which pair? This is gold. I'm just going to be explaining gold. I'm already in sales. Me personally, I entered on Friday and I'm still holding in the sales, so I'm basically just going to be explaining a few. So just make sure you go and watch it there. Just go and watch it there so that you can have a better view of the screen. Just so that you can have a better view of the screen, make sure you go and watch it there. Go onto the YouTube channel. I'm gonna start in a few. Search iPod Official Trader. Search iPod Official Trader. Just search iPod Official Trader. Go and just search iPod Official Trader. Yeah, just search iPod Official Trader on YouTube. You're gonna come across this, and then you'll be able to watch the whole live properly. You'll be able to watch the live properly. So at the moment, where do I see? Sometimes let me also just log in here, because I'm still trying to actually sort out this stream here on YouTube. So just go to YouTube, search iPod Official Trader. You're gonna find the stream. I'm still trying to sort it out. I am still trying to sort it out. Yes. I do not know what's the problem with this. Come on. It's really giving me a problem. Ooh. That's not a problem. We'll just leave it there. We will just leave it there. If you comment on the channel, I'll just make sure that I try to be able to read the comments on the stream, that stream, because I'm trying to actually access the panel. It's giving me a problem. Okay, I think I'm trying to actually access the panel. yeah, I'm still gonna try to access the panel. Just wait. Okay. Peace. Come on. I am honestly trying my best right now. Ooh, I so let's just continue with this thing. Let's just continue. Just make sure that you also comment there so that I can be able to see what is going on. Comment there on the channel so that I can know what's going on. Because at the moment there seems to be a problem in terms of the panel. But it's alright. It's alright. So I'm just gonna be trying to explain this whole thing. So at the moment, in terms of gold, let's actually try to break down this whole entire setup that we do have right here. To watch this whole thing, go to YouTube and go and watch it. The name of the channel is Official Trader. Just go on YouTube so that you can be able to watch it. So in terms of this whole setup, right, I'm gonna break it down from each and every time frame that I actually did go through. So I'm gonna start with the 4-hour time frame because I did start from the 4-hour time frame. So just choose the gold, different gold, and go down to a 4-hour time frame. So at first, from last week, Friday, there was active news that actually drove gold to push even higher. So from those buys, there's a way in which those drives were pushed, or rather those buys were actually manifested. In terms of different platforms that I'm using, there was actually equal lows that I actually, or rather to actually emphasize on the buys that actually were activated from here. So this is where those equal lows were actually positioned. Those were the equal lows that actually drove price even higher. Unfortunately, guys, I'd have to leave TikTok for now so that I can actually focus more on YouTube. So until then, bye bye. You'll find me on YouTube. So as I was still saying, I want to focus mainly on the YouTube, right? So what we need to actually focus on is the following. So what we need to focus on in terms of gold at the moment precisely is the following things. So now when we look at gold at the moment, we need to understand, or rather we need to actually understand, how did the buys actually start. When we understand how did these buys actually start, then that's when things will become much more better to understand. um, nice, nice. So just to betterly explain this whole entire trade at the moment, I'm gonna restart afresh. So in order to understand where exactly gold is heading, you need to understand how did gold actually move prior the uh, actual time, right? So on Friday we did actually have this buys right there, based on I think Powell was actually giving out a speech, so that's what actually drove price to even push higher. But now with an understanding, as you can see clearly from this setup right here, on this setup right here, you can clearly see that I did mark out key uh, areas. Being the first one, we do have equal lows right there, which are the ones that drove price even higher. Obviously, as much as we understand that fundamentals actually only just increase momentum in the market, I'd like to believe to say that these were the equal lows that drove price to even push higher. Prior that, we did actually also have higher. Prior that, we did actually also have another equal lows right here, which were the intended ones at first. So basically right here, which were the intended ones at first. So basically we had this equal lows right here, which were the first ones that actually equal lows right here, which were the first ones uh, that actually were to drive price even higher. Now looking at this ones, these were the second ones that actually were going to drive price even higher. Obviously starting from the push right here, we didn't mainly have obviously starting from the push right here, we didn't mainly have confirmation in terms of price to push gold even higher, in terms of price to push gold even higher on this first leg right here. Now coming to this second leg, obviously based on how we enter this kind of models, we need to understand how we go about understanding those principles, and then we need to understand that on gold, this is where we actually had our confirmation of buys. This is the area. This is the area where the buys were actually confirmed. So this is where the buys were actually confirmed, which actually drove price even high after the engulfing that occurred right there. And obviously, since we also need to understand that there is actually we need to also understand that how price actually drive how actually price moves. We need to also understand how it goes about pushing even higher. So from this engulfing right here, this is the engulfing that actually drove price even higher on gold up until that price right there. Right now, also based on the model that I'm using on gold, right? Based on the model that I'm using on gold, then you need to understand that this is the one that actually drove price higher. But then on the model type, there is a way in which price actually also identifies, or rather an exit area will also comply to how price actually started buying from last week. So understanding that entry criteria, or rather the entry model that actually drove price even higher in this case, then I understood that I needed to check key areas which could actually play in a role in identifying exit areas for gold, and I identified those prices resting at this area right here, which is somewhere around let me take a look at that price, which is 33.59.20. If you do want to watch this whole entire session, go to YouTube, you'll find it there. So now, also understanding that this was the actual price that actually this was the actual price that held gold in terms of the TPs, or rather the targets for these buys that were drove by the fundamentals on Friday. This was the TP. Now, understanding that TP, obviously it means that we're not necessarily going to get a clean confirmation entry sell after the price actually finishes up with the model. I understood that there are certain key areas that I would have to then highlight so that I can actually look for selling opportunities in this case. Now, that price gave me an idea of understanding where gold has to move in this case. That's the one that actually gave me an idea of what to look for on gold, because you need to understand that on gold or rather in any particular thing, it could be your currencies, it could be your indices or whatever, after every swing high, price will always reverse. Now on that case, this was the swing high. Unfortunately, even though I didn't highlight it properly right there, I can still mark it. So this was the swing high that actually, if you actually let me just put a horizontal line so that you can actually see what am I talking about. That. So either way, after price actually breaks those equal high, breaks any swing high or any swing low, it will try by all means to retrace. So taking part of that retrace, obviously you need to understand that a retrace, not a reversal. So we are basically looking for a retracement. Now a retrace as such, in such that it actually could be ranging inside it could actually be pushing back inside a range. It could actually be pushing back inside a range, or it could actually be reversing. So we need to firstly attempt the reversing. So we need to firstly attempt the reversal, or rather the pull back in, as a form of a short scalp. But then as price actually unfolds into the range, then it will actually identify if whether the sell will actually be long or just a short term. Now, with understanding that, now that's why even on Friday, after price actually broke above those key areas, then I said, you know what, let me actually start looking for selling opportunities there, right there and right there. So my main key drive as well in terms of taking those selling opportunities was at first obviously from different time frames, being the 30 minutes time frame and also the 15 minutes time frame. We had the same similar key concept of entering, which is an engulfing candlestick as well. We did have the first engulfing candlestick from the 30 minutes time frame, and also if you look down to your 15 minutes time frame, we also have the 15 minutes time frame engulfing candlestick, which also rests on the same key price area as intended, on the same key level, which means then it solidifies the setup, not as much as I would like it to be, but at least that's double the confirmation I'm looking for in different time frames, which then says I could actually go in on the trade, keeping in mind it is a risk trade on its own, because there are certain key candlesticks that actually identify if the price is actually a retracement or a reversal, of which that would have been a good case. But in this case, just relying on 2 time frames, one entry model type criteria, then we are still good to go. So now still same thing applies on this whole entire trade. Obviously, we need to also mark out key areas which will invalidate the setup, not precisely just putting a stop loss just based on what we feel or based on what we have, right? So we need to understand that on its own, it's part of what it's part of an understanding of how gold moves. That's one thing that you need to understand. We need to understand that when it comes to trading gold. When it comes to trading gold, ish, I'm even having a headache. Even having a headache. But so far so good. It is very uh, um, rich to actually just say that so far so good. I'm still most likely looking for gold to actually push even lower. Now, in terms of target on this whole entire trade, obviously I'm following an entry criteria as well. Same model I'm using to enter has to have the same, or rather, it has to follow an exit criteria model in this case. Now, the exit criteria model of this case tells me that chances are that obviously, as much as we are looking